The first scream cut through the mall like a bullet. It wasn't loud at first, more like a sharp gasp swallowed by the echo of music and chatter, but it carried the kind of fear that makes strangers turn their heads at the same time. A tall, silver-haired man in a dark blazer staggered near the escalator, his hand clutching his chest as if he were trying to hold his heart in place. His knees buckled, the shopping bag slipped from his fingers, and in that instant, before gravity finished its work, a young nurse named Emily Carter dropped her coffee and ran. Emily had just finished a double shift at St. Mary's Hospital. Her feet ached, her eyes burned, and she had promised herself a quiet hour, just one, before going home. She wasn't wearing scrubs, just jeans and a hoodie, her hair pulled back in a tired knot. But training doesn't clock out. When she saw the man collapse, everything else vanished. She slid across the polished floor, ignoring the stairs, the phones lifting to record, the security guard shouting for space. "Sir, can you hear me?" she asked, already checking his pulse. There was none she could feel. His skin was ashen, his breathing shallow and uneven. Someone shouted that he was an old man, that help was coming, that someone should call an ambulance. Emily didn't wait. She tilted his head, listened, counted seconds that felt like hours. "Heart attack," she said firmly, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I need an AED. Now." The man on the floor was General Thomas Hale, retired United States Marine Corps. For 35 years, he had led troops through deserts and jungles, had stood unflinching under fire, had made decisions that weighed lives against seconds. None of that mattered now. His medals were at home in a drawer. His rank meant nothing to the heart that was failing him in the middle of a mall. Emily began CPR, pressing hard and fast, counting aloud to keep rhythm. 1, 2, 3. Her arms burned almost immediately, but she didn't slow. She thought of her patients, of the ones she had lost, of the ones she still saw in her sleep. She thought of her father, gone too young from the same silent killer. She refused to let another name join that list. A teenager sprinted back with the AED, his face pale. Emily guided his hands, tore open the package, placed the pads with practiced precision. "Clear," she ordered, her voice cutting through the crowd. The machine analyzed. Seconds stretched. Then it spoke. Shock advised. Emily swallowed, pressed the button, and felt the jolt pass through the man's body. She went right back to compressions, sweat dripping down her temples, her knees numb against the floor. Around her, the mall seemed to hold its breath. On the second shock, the man gasped. It was a small sound, barely audible, but to Emily it was thunder. She checked again, fingers trembling now. There it was, a pulse, weak but real. Relief crashed over her so hard she almost laughed, almost cried. Paramedics arrived moments later, taking over, loading him onto a stretcher. As they rushed him away, one of them looked at Emily with something like awe. "You saved his life," he said. Emily nodded, too exhausted to speak, and stepped back into the crowd. By the time security asked for her name, she was already slipping away, picking up her cold coffee, blending back into anonymity. She didn't know who the man was. She didn't need to. She had done what she was trained to do. General Hale woke up 2 days later in a hospital bed surrounded by quiet machines and unfamiliar faces. His chest ached, his throat was dry, but he was alive. When the doctor explained what had happened, where it had happened, how close he had come, Hale closed his eyes. He had faced death before. He had stared it down across battlefields. But this had been different. This had been sudden, undignified, ordinary. "A nurse," the doctor said. "Off duty." She started CPR immediately. "Without her, you wouldn't be here." Hale asked for her name. No one had it. He asked again the next day. And the next. He asked mall security, hospital staff, anyone who might know. It bothered him more than the pain, more than the fear that still crept in when the monitors beeped too fast. A Marine never left a debt unpaid. And this was the greatest debt of his life. Emily went back to work the following week. Life didn't pause because you saved someone. Bills still came. Patients still cried. She picked up extra shifts to cover her mother's medication, to chip away at her nursing school loans. She didn't tell anyone at work what had happened. It felt strange to talk about, like claiming credit for breathing. Then one afternoon, a letter arrived at her small apartment. Heavy paper, official seal. She almost threw it away, thinking it was another bill. Inside was an invitation. General Thomas Hale requested the honor of her presence at a small ceremony at the Marine Corps Memorial Hall. Emily sat down hard on the couch. Her hands shook as she read it again. And again. She had to call the number at the bottom twice before she could speak. The ceremony was nothing like she expected. No cameras, no press, just a quiet room filled with Marines in dress blues, their posture straight, their eyes serious. General Hale stood at the front, thinner now, a cane in his hand, but his presence still commanding. When Emily entered, he turned, and for the first time since the mall, their eyes met. He walked to her slowly, deliberately, and then did something that made the room go silent. He saluted. For 35 years, he said, his voice rough, men and women saluted me. They trusted me with their lives. 2 weeks ago, a young nurse I had never met did the same, without hesitation, without asking who I was. She reminded me what service truly means. He told the story, not as a hero's tale, but as a lesson. About humility, about readiness, about the power of one person choosing to act. Then came the unbelievable part. General Hale had established a foundation years earlier for veterans' medical care, but after his heart attack, he changed its mission. He announced a new program, full scholarships for nurses and first responders who demonstrated extraordinary courage, starting with Emily Carter. Her student loans would be paid in full. Her future secured. Emily felt the room spin. She tried to speak, to refuse, to say it was too much. Hale stopped her gently. You didn't save me for this, he said. I know that, but let me do my duty now. They thought that was the end of the story. It wasn't. Months later, Emily was working a night shift when a familiar name appeared on her patient list. Thomas Hale. Routine checkup. She smiled to herself, thinking fate had a sense of humor. But when she entered the room, she saw something else, fear. Real fear, the kind that doesn't care about rank or medals. I thought I was past this, he admitted quietly. Turns out surviving is harder than fighting. Emily sat with him longer than required, explaining, listening, reminding him that strength wasn't the absence of fear, it was moving forward with it. In that moment, the roles reversed again. Not savior and saved, but two humans meeting in the fragile space between life and loss. Before he left, Hale took her hand. You didn't just save my heart, he said. You changed it. Years passed. Emily became a nurse practitioner, then an instructor, teaching students not just procedures, but presence. General Hale attended her graduation, sat in the front row, applauding until his hands hurt. Together, they spoke at schools and community centers, urging people to learn CPR, to act, to care. And somewhere in a busy mall, near an escalator where people still rush by without looking, a small plaque now hangs on the wall. It doesn't name a general. It doesn't list medals or ranks. It reads, in honor of the courage to act. One life saved, countless others inspired, because sometimes, the most unbelievable thing isn't that a life was saved. It's how many lives changed because someone refused to look away.